So we have different methods for modeling the beams in CIM. Okay, so we shall cover few different options today. So we shall be covering three options, that is how using the model option, using the general option, and then using the path linked entity. Okay, so currently we have got three options over here. So the first one, this one refers the model concrete. Okay, and the second, this refers to the path link, and the final, this also refers to general number. So over here you can see that the final output for model concrete and the general number, it is same. So if you look in the plan view, you can see that both the model concrete and the general member, so both of them, they have not adapted to the layout. Only the option using the path link have adapted to the layout. Okay, so now let us see each option separately. So first let us see about this model concrete option. So in this case, this particular concrete beam we have defined using model and concrete option. Okay, so in this you click on this and then you can select the beam and then you can define this particular beam for a 10-meter length. Once that is done, then you define a point. So in this case we have defined this constraint point at the starting. So if you go to entity, so over here you can see the constraint point. So we have defined the constraint point at the beginning, at the origin point, and then we have assigned this particular member to this point using the point linked option. Okay, so once this is done, then next we created a normal assembly unit. So we created this particular assembly unit, and to this assembly unit we assigned the model concrete option using the default options. Okay, so after this, once we created the layout, and in the layout when we assigned this particular member, so now what happens is that in the library, if you remember, we have assigned this particular member to the starting point. So now what has happened is that that particular member of length 10 meter got assigned to the origin point. Okay, so in this case this particular beam shall not adapt to the layout. So what happens is that the initial member that we created of length 10 meter gets directly assigned to that particular point. Okay, now the second option is using the path linked. So if you see over here, the path linked member that follows the entire alignment. So in this case we have defined this library. So for this we had created a user section. So we created a user section, okay, that is a rectangle, and that user section was created under base. Under user section we had used this option to create that particular user section. Okay, now using this path linked option, so under the path link you have this create plane type. So using this create plane type option, we have assigned this particular user section to this path. So if you click on create plane type, you can select the user section and then you can choose whichever path, the default constraint path or main constraint path. So in this case it is default constraint path, and then once you assign this particular cross section, then once you click on the preview, then what happens is that this entire cross section that gets applied to the path. Okay, so now we have defined this particular library using this particular path linked option, and then after that we follow the usual procedure, that is we create the assembly unit, and then using this curve library we just directly assign the path linked library onto this assembly unit. Okay, and after this the major point to note is that when we assign this particular assembly unit, that is when we assign this the second assembly unit, that is this path linked onto this segment, so the member, that is assembly unit, automatically gets adapted to the layout, and then the entire beam is formed accordingly. Okay, so whenever you want the entire library to follow along the alignment of the bridge, then we need to use the path linked option. Next, let us discuss about the third option, that is the general member. So this option, for in this case over here we have used the general member. So in this, let us go into the library, and so this particular member, for this also we have defined a rectangular user section. Okay, so the difference lies, so for example you can see that this is the rectangular user section that we have defined, but the change is that we have defined this member using the model general option. So if you click on model general, and then you have a create plane type option. Okay, so if you just click on this, Then after this, you can create the user section. For example, if you just click on the first point, second point, third point, okay, and then if you enter 10 meter, and then if you click on preview, then you can see that we have defined a member. Okay, so if you just click on this, and then what we do is we go to the curve library, we define a point, okay, and then next process is similar to the one that we had used in model concrete. So we define this point, and then if we use the point linked option to assign this particular member to that particular point, okay, let us delete this one. And now after this, we create the assembly unit. So creation of assembly unit is similar to that of the earlier two methods. And after that, when we assign this particular assembly unit onto this layout, then we can see that in this case also the member does not follow the layout. So the concept is the same. So in this case, the member of 10 meter length that we defined gets assigned to the layout as it is at the constraint point. So this is the difference between the three methods, that is the model concrete, path linked, and general member.